Do you remember this?
तुम सोना अपने साथ लाए हो डॉन?
तुमने जितना मांगा था उतना सोना अपने साथ लाए हो राज सिंह।
शहर के तीनों बड़े स्मगलर्स का माल इस ट्रक में मौजूद है। असली सोना, ट्रांजिस्टर्स, कैमरे, पूरे 50 लाख का माल है।
और कहीं पकड़े गए तो
अव्वल तो ऐसा होगा नहीं, और अगर ऐसा हुआ तो पुलिस को कभी पता नहीं चलेगा कि माल किसका है। सोना मेरे हवाले कर दो।
70s Bollywood movies were replete with such scenes of gold being smuggled through sea and men in bell-bottoms and side locks. They gave us a sneak peek into the world of gold smuggling. In fact, the Bombay of the 70s and 80s was full of action from underworld gangs operated by the likes of Haji Mastan and Karim Lala that thrived on smuggling, with gold being their preferred choice. But why are we talking about all this? Am I feeling nostalgic on a Tuesday morning? Not really. It's because last week gold prices hit a record high.
इस वित्त वर्ष के पहले हफ्ते में ही गोल्ड ने 61,000 की रिकॉर्ड ऊंचाई को भी पार कर लिया है।
Gold prices in India have increased 15% in the past 1 year. But thanks to the cumulative tax of 18% that India levies on import of gold, its rising prices could mean more smuggling. In this episode, we delve into why India faces high incidence of gold smuggling, the way the modus operandi has changed over the years, how the menace can be controlled, and is there a way out? In this episode, we hear from a recently retired veteran from the Customs Department who didn't want to be named, but who let us in on some thrilling cases in his career.
They conceal gold in every conceivable way you can imagine. And they are basically carriers. And that is part of their business, I think. निकल गए तो निकल गए, पकड़े गए, गया.
We also have Som Sundaram PR, India CEO for the World Gold Council.
Thumb rule is that about 5% is what you actually end up catching in the best year.
Dr. Rajesh Kumar Verma, Additional Director General, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs.
The ingenuity with which the smugglers try to bring in, and we have to match them, we have to beat them in their game. So that's a real everyday challenge for us.
Naval Agrawal, Convener, Jewelry Panel Committee, Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council.
We are requesting the government to reduce the duty so that smuggling at least doesn't take place.
And Pradeep Thakur, Editor Governance at the Times of India.
Recently, during investigation, they found major established jewelers in the country who have turnover of 1,000 crore or 2,000 crore. They are involved. And because they're involved, now we see involvement of politicians, ministers, bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats.
Stay tuned as we take you through the whys and hows of the new age gold smuggling. It's Tuesday, April 11th. From the Economic Times, I am Kiran Somvanshi, and you are listening to Gold's Own Country, Why India is a Smuggling Hub. This is the Morning Brief. Indians love gold. Actually, not just love, we are obsessed with it. We buy it as our ultimate investment, the safest haven, making us one of the top 2 consumers of the precious metal in the world. Here's Som Sundaram of the World Gold Council.
So India consumes about 800 tons of gold every year, out of which close to 100 tons comes through recycling. By recycling, what we mean is people who sell gold for cash. So the balance comes from imports. There is no mining of gold in India.
In the beginning of the 20th century, India was the world's 6th largest producer of gold. But then our output fell dramatically and never revived. The Kolar mines in Karnataka, one of India's oldest and richest gold reserves, have been defunct for more than 20 years. For something we love so much, we are the antithesis of Atmanirbhar. In fact, India is the biggest importer of gold in the world. Last year, in 2022, we imported 706 tons of gold, That's 90% of our annual consumption. Its value comes to 2.7 lakh crore rupees. Quite an amount for a low middle income country with an annual per capita income of 1.5 lakh rupees. But the government doesn't like us shopping abroad for gold. Why? Our greed for gold puts pressure on the government's balance sheet as billions of dollars are spent on buying it. So what does the government do? It makes imports expensive by raising the duties on it. It was way back in 1968 that the seeds of smuggling were first sown. Former Finance Minister Morarji Desai restricted imports by rolling out the Gold Control Act. It massively restricted the gold trade in the country. But it couldn't curb demand. Result? It led to the emergence of illicit trade in gold. The act remained for 22 years. And here's Dr. Verma telling us what happened next.
After this act was repealed in 1990s, individuals could import it, firms could import it in the form of gold, and the pent-up demand which was there. This led to mushrooming of gold imports in the country. Initially, the rate of duty was just about 2%, but later, as the rate of duty increased, the illegal channels gradually saw more movement. And it is essentially the price differential between Indian market and the outside market. When it is about, say, 6 to 8,000 rupees per 10 grams difference, then the gold smuggling, that tends to jump up.
Soma Sundaram says, gold smuggling has had its highs and lows through the years. The reasons have varied, from government policies to tax rates to demand.
The height of smuggling was in 2013 and parts of 2014, because that was the year 2013 when we started raising the duty from 2%. It was 2% till 2013. And then it gradually went up to 10%. On top of it, by July, August, I don't remember the exact month, we had the 80-20 principle. That is, if you have to import gold, you have to export 20% of the gold. The intention was okay, but there were unintended consequences. All right. I mean, you can't wish away gold demand in India. So that was a time when we saw peak smuggling. So the estimates vary between 200 to 220 tons annually in that period. Since then, it came down. But once again, duty went up, from 10%, it went to 12.5% and then 15%. Now it is standing at 15% plus 3.5% GST. So 3% GST, in a sense, it works out to 18.5% of duty now.
Right.
And the COVID, of course, completely obliterated the grey market because there was no movement of people, there was no movement of goods, etc. But what we hear now is with the rise in duty, I think the smuggling has gone up. Again, it's very, very difficult to estimate this market. Estimate is around 100 tons of gold gets smuggled into India, but some people say it is much, much more than that. Our own demand supply says that about 80 to 100 tons gets smuggled into India on an average because of the 10% to 15% duty.
So basically, there is a correlation with the duty. So the higher the duty, the more incidence of smuggling. That is what it is?
It certainly, duty is an element, but I wouldn't say only duty is a trigger for it. Let's be very clear. Duty and the demand. Currently, what is happening is, while the duty is high, the demand is not very high. So while there is a propensity to smuggle, smuggling itself may not be very high. But whatever is coming in could be probably smuggled, but you need also strong demand to support smuggling.
From the whys of smuggling, let's move to the hows. It is no longer boats offloading gold or suitcases full of gold biscuits being accosted. Now the smugglers find ways to not just hide gold, but also change its form, texture, and even color. While gold still gets smuggled into the country through air, land, and sea, everything else about the business has changed. Here's my Times of India colleague, Pradeep Thakur.
So there are 2-3 ways of doing it. One is couriers come from abroad, Dubai, Singapore, Bangkok, and they bring gold consignments on their persons. Another way of smuggling is through our borders. And in the past 4 5 years, what we have seen is increasing smuggling from Indo-Bhutan border, Indo-Bangladesh border, Indo-Myanmar border, and from northeast they enter India, and there are primary markets where major consumptions happen. These major markets are Calcutta, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Tamil Nadu, Hyderabad, even Ahmedabad. This is one route which they have tracked, even Indo-Nepal borders. So because we increased checking on Indo-Nepal borders, so these northeast borders and Bangladesh borders got activated. We also have a traditional route of smuggling, which is through Colombo to Tamil Nadu, Chennai, and then to rest part of the country.
And the origins of the smuggled gold coming into the country have also changed over the years, as Dr. Verma details.
I remember 20 years, 25 years back when we joined in. Then at that point of time, the smuggled gold coming from UAE, which was the highest, almost we used to say about 75% of it comes through that route. Dubai, and then even Hong Kong used to be one common place we were cited off. But over the years, we have seen like last year's statistics shows that almost 70% plus gold was brought in through Myanmar and Bangladesh. So this land route has emerged as a new challenge. And certain cities in Myanmar and China, and they are known to be the possible routes used by the smugglers.
But how did this happen? With no air travel during the COVID lockdowns, smugglers explored new land routes. And that's how the Indo-Myanmar border made its mark on the gold smuggling map. The crackdown on insurgency in the region also helped the illegal traders switch from smuggling guns to gold. Dr. Verma also told me about the worrying trend of foreign nationals coming in with illicit gold. For instance, in February, the cops nabbed several Sudanese nationals coming in with 100 kgs of gold. Now, this smuggled gold not only is a loss to the exchequer, but it also impacts the domestic jewelry market in the country, as Naval Agarwal points out.
The gold jewelry market in India is basically unorganized sector. So when this smuggling takes place, and especially at the time of when the prices are very high, touching the records, then the smuggling affects the market rates tremendously. See, nowadays, the duty rates are approximately 15%, and nearly there's a difference of approximately 8 to 9 lakhs rupees on 1 kg. So the unauthorized gold or smuggled gold is 8 lakh rupees cheaper as compared to the authorized gold. Market is very demanding. This is the time when official gold is not coming, is very negligible, and smuggled gold is flourishing in the market, spreading in the market. So when this type of gold comes in the market, lots of abuses are coming in the business because of this smuggled gold. People who are doing their business ethically, they are facing great problem. I mean, compete with those who are selling at the lesser rates. So that is the basic reason why we are alarmed with this smuggling taking place in the country. And for this reason, we are requesting the government to reduce the duty so that smuggling at least doesn't take place.
So, Mr. Agarwal, are jewelers part of the nexus?
It's really difficult to name anybody or to tell about anybody, but then to a certain extent, people are doing. But see, the good jewelers, they are now refrained from doing all these things, though they lose the sale, but still they keep their system clean. But then, of course, there are good number who are buying smuggled gold also and then selling the things like that.
If you're wondering how smuggling actually happens,
somebody can bring it either as a part of one's own luggage when somebody is coming down, or sending it down within his own clothing, say carrying it in his pocket the easiest possible way, hiding it in a shoe or in a jacket, or wearing a specific belt to hide it, or even concealing it within a body cavity. Our team sometimes can see even from their way of walking that there is something abnormal, or somebody who has not been drinking water for hours, or somebody walking into the toilet and leaving a bag there. While he goes in, he has a bag and he hides it in the toilet so that somebody at a later point of time can come and collect it. or a simple air conditioner coming in. You look at it and yes, it looks like an air conditioner. Or consignment of motors coming in, or and similarly, there's a lot of import of goods happening through containerized cargo. When the customs have made cases involving even airline staff or the ground staff at times. So all these are different challenges, and each case is different in its own kind. The common thing only remains that it is gold, but the ingenuity with which the smugglers try to bring in, and we have to match them, we have to do them, we have to beat them in their game. So that's a everyday challenge for us.
It's a really tough space to be in, one which requires a mix of experience, on your feet thinking, and very often the soft skills to delicately handle unpleasant situations. From Operation Molten Metal to Operation Golden Tap, the DRI has mounted several such planned actions to nab the smugglers.
Well, as the figures show, in 2020, there were 2,567 cases of gold seizures. In 2021, there were 2,445 cases. In 2022, it was 3,982 cases. That means we have made more than 10 cases a day. And in January 2023 itself, there has been 414 cases. 115 persons have been arrested. So practically, it makes more than, say, somewhere around 4 arrests a day. Customs, the figures will show, are doing a good job.
We asked a recently retired senior customs official to share with us actual cases from India's busiest airport, Delhi, where he was stationed. He did not wish to be identified.
One case I remember, two persons aged about 25, 26 years old. They were traveling together. They were crossing, just one handbag slinging their shoulder. And the particular thing was that they had similar haircut, same hairstyle, one mushroom type haircut. So I was curious why these two persons are having same haircut. Yeah, I just called my officers, I called them, पूछो इनसे क्या है ये, कहाँ से आ रहे हैं, क्या है. तो 2-3 क्वेश्चन के बाद their hands were shaking and they were unable to answer our questions properly. So it raised some suspicion and we called them inside. Then we saw that the entire hair was fake, and he just pulled it out and we saw one big pouch was kept on his head and नकली बाल जो है उनके ऊपर डाल दिया. So that was gold paste, gold in paste form. Once we caught one person having shaft of Mercedes car. He was bringing in from Dubai, but it was unusually heavy. So we scanned it in X-ray and we found that the hollow part was filled with molten gold. You can say they conceal gold in every conceivable way you can imagine. But there are certain shops in Dubai who sell the toys having gold. You just go there and ask, I want half kg gold. They will give you a toy, they will give you a stereo. Half kg gold is concealed there. You go to your home and break it, you will get it. It is like that.
This sounds interesting, right? But it is lots of behind the scenes hard work. The official told me that even when they are informed about a flight that is suspected to be ferrying smuggled gold, it's very difficult to zero in on 3 to 4 passengers from the 200 odd passengers on that flight. And the checks are a cumbersome process. This difficulty in profiling the passengers makes it all the more important for the customs department to rely upon what we call human intelligence, which comes from a diligently built network of informers within the country and outside.
So they provide us input that certain passenger, like their photo, they send their photograph or their passport details. But it is risky also. An officer cannot expose a informer to other officers also. One who is doing this work for me, he will do for me only, not for any other officer. It took about 6 or 7 months for me to cultivate one informer in Dubai.
So, what is the incentive for the informer to help you?
They get rewards. Government has a reward scheme, and it is a very lucrative reward for informers. 10% of the value of seized gold. That this is advance reward before finalization of the case. So 10% of gold value is a huge quantity.
As one can imagine, it is not just a couple of people involved in smuggling. It is an entire racket, complete with a mastermind either sitting in India or abroad and having a network of people to help in transferring the gold from its origin to its final destination. A network that could have bureaucrats, government officials, airline and airport staff, customs officials, middlemen, and large jewelry chains. Here's Pradeep.
You'll be surprised to know, recently during investigation, they found major established jewelers in the country who have turnover of 1,000 crore or 2,000 crore, they are involved. And because they're involved, now we see involvement of politicians, ministers, bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats. So this is not that we are talking off record or anything. On record, ED has booked Principal Secretary, a former Principal Secretary of Kerala Chief Minister. He was involved in a gold smuggling racket where they found not only him, but it involved the officials of the consulate of UAE in Kochi. So because there were less checks on diplomatic consignments at the airport, they used to use that official courier to smuggle gold from Dubai to Kochi, and then those golds were used by the leading jewelers.
And then there are companies in the SEZs, that is special economic zones, that too have smuggled gold.
This was around 2010. The Customs Department and DRI, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, they conducted raids on SEZ in Noida, in Delhi NCR, and they found there were a couple of units which were making huge imports. In fact, say for instance, turnover of that entire SEZ was 10,000 crore in a year. 9,000 crore was only on account of gold import and jewelry exports. And when they actually went into what was imported and what was exported, they found in terms of exports, they were sending garbage, and the gold which were imported were diverted to the local market. And money laundering was happening because they imported gold. So they were sending money through legal channel by showing fake exports.
With Benami transactions on properties banned, people find smuggled gold and diamonds safe to park their ill-gotten money. With several ways of smuggling, the moot question is, how much of this smuggled gold actually gets detected and seized by the authorities? Som Sundaram provides the ballpark estimates.
What is seized by the authorities is a public figure. That ranges between, I think, 5 tons, 2.5, 5, 7. I doubt it has ever exceeded 10 tons. I don't think it has even reached that. And the thumb rule is that about 5% is what you actually end up catching in the best year.
5 to 7 tons of gold being seized when 80 to 100 tons get smuggled into the country, that's a very low detection rate. What could it mean? Weak laws or their poor enforcement?
We have not made our laws implemented efficiently where there is a fear that they might get caught and they might not do business, or they might face penalty where it is very harsh. Could be a reason for such syndicate operating. Because one case we found, one Delhi leading jeweler was caught to have smuggled in 1,000 kgs of gold, 1 ton of gold from Dubai. Now, all other people in his syndicate were caught, investigated. Now, this leading jeweler got a stay from Supreme Court on no coercive action against him. This is now 5th or 6th year that agencies have not been able to arrest him just because there is a no coercive action, and there's no coercive action from Supreme Court is still pending. So these are the lacuna in the law or enforcement of law which encourages such syndicates to keep on operating.
But have you seen what happens to these people after the cases? Have their businesses shut down? Have they stopped functioning as a jeweler? What happens? What are the ramifications they face?
So as of now, what I see, only people actually used as couriers, they are caught and they are sent to jail. Kofeposa is for 1 year, there is no trial, and you cannot get out of your detention. You're arrested, and neither can you operate any of your bank accounts. Kofeposa generally is exposed on the couriers who travel with the physical gold or the foreigners who are caught, but not on the masterminds or the end users. Maybe any consumer or maybe a jewelry house, the chain. They don't face the kind of penalty that a courier faces when he's caught. Once we start penalizing the consumers, then there will be no takers for such goods.
So basically, we have stringent laws, just that we are not enforcing them on the right kind of people.
Yeah, right.
So, does the buck stop with the government? I asked Som Sundaram about what sense he gets from the government's policy on gold.
Government definitely always is concerned about it. They say at the end of the day, oh, how does the smuggled gold get sold? It is through the same jewelry network. So why are you people coming and telling us duty is the reason?
It is not the customs duty on gold which determines the extent of smuggling. Higher the duty, people feel, oh, there's greater leverage to be handled, and therefore there's more smuggling. And lower the counter argument to it, lower the duty, less smuggling. No, smuggling seems to have its own cycle.
It's always a difficult logic, but the compliant players ultimately pay the price. Their margins are affected. The government knows about it. The point is, government also knows that duty has to be reduced. Government has two objectives in raising duty. One is obviously to get more money because there is dollar involved, etc. The other is to curb demand itself. It is a latter part where I believe that probably the logic may not be very strong. You cannot curb demand by raising the duty. It's been proven time and again. In fact, you increase the duty, people who have bought gold last year feel they have done a good decision. So you actually end up feeding the expectation again. As I said, it's a very sensitive topic because, government wants to discourage gold. There is no mining of gold in India. Recycling is, as I said, it's just 80, 100 tons. It's not rising to some 300 tons. Gold monetization scheme was supposed to do all that, but it hasn't done that. So the government has, in a sense, used the duty as a tool for basically curbing demand more than raising resources. So that, I think, has not worked. So what are the other options before the government? Obviously, the more and more they support organized trade, things like HUID in hallmarking.
To ensure that only the legal gold reaches consumers, from the 1st of April, all gold jewelry and artifacts have to carry a hallmark identification number. Now, this number will help the consumers trace the jewelry back to its jeweler and check its purity.
Second, ensuring that all imports, like in China, come through the exchange. There is no OTC trade. Now, these are all very, very big decisions. It has to be done carefully. But now you have the International Bullion Exchange. SEBI is looking at a domestic exchange. So bullion trade must be completely centralized so that there is no cash transaction happening in bullion.
Customer awareness is also extremely critical.
I think government also has to bring a lot of awareness to people that when they buy this gold without invoice, the benefit of the duty that has been saved is not passed on to the consumer. Never. Nobody takes all that risk to bring gold and pass on a benefit to the consumer. It is being consumed by the network. What happens is, because somebody takes it without bill, they may be getting impure gold. 10-15% of the people who think they are getting a cheap gold because there is no bill probably will be getting highly impure gold, and they lose more money there. So it is a self-feeding mechanism in the smuggled market. They must give a lot of incentives for digital payments in the industry. Now, you can't pay 1.5% and 2% on credit cards and other payments for gold because 0.5%, 1% on gold is very large margin. Now, digital is everywhere. Earlier, we used to always claim that rural markets don't have banks. Therefore, there is no financial inclusion. Therefore, they are buying gold. Now, there is digital payments everywhere. So, we need to integrate it. And these will actually go and kill the grey market.
History has time and again proven that whatever is clamped down through regulations or taxes becomes an area to dabble in for the opportunists, be it gold, cigarettes, or liquor. So, slashing import duty on gold may seem to be the most obvious solution to stop its smuggling, but it's easier said than done. A former revenue secretary who spoke to me off the record said he didn't agree that smuggling is high because of higher import duty. They haven't seen such a correlation from data. And high import duty had its own benefits on the macros. Definitely, the government has a tight rope to walk on, balancing the two objectives of containing the trade deficit on one hand and controlling the demand for illicit gold on the other. The government has already rolled out compulsory hallmarking of gold and launched sovereign gold bonds as an investment option. Last year, it was reportedly trying to chalk out a national gold policy to connect stakeholders across the gold value chain and had plans to introduce a gold savings account to hold the metal in digital form. These measures can go a long way in curbing the unofficial trade in gold. But it's not just the government. You and me too have a role to play and a reason to benefit by refusing to buy gold without a receipt. So let's not shy away from buying tax-paid hallmarked gold this Akshaya Tritiya. So that's it for today. This is Kiran Somanchi from the Economic Times, and you are listening to Gold's Own Country, Why India is a Smuggling Hub, only on the Morning Brief. Special thank you to our guests Dr. Rajesh Verma, Naval Agrawal, the Senior Customs Official, Som Sundaram PR, and Pradeep Thakur for their amazing insights. This episode was brought to you by sound editor Indranil Bhattacharjee and producer Sumit Pandey. Executive producers Anupriya Nair, Anirban Chaudhary, and Arijit Burman. We hope you like this episode. Do share it on your social media networks. Don't forget to tune in to a new episode of the Morning Brief podcast every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. It streams on Amazon Prime Music, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And of course, ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Thank you for listening and have a superb week ahead. All clips used in this episode belong to the respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.